Okay everyone, here we are on chapter 4, where we're going to learn how to light a cylinder. This will be the third and final form I'll be going over this week, but this should be more than enough to get us all started in applying it to several other forms in terms of rendering. Let's start off by talking about the characteristics of the cylinder here. So just like the sphere that we just went over, we'll have a curved surface that goes all the way around, and you'll see a smooth and nice gradient on the longest part. However, on the side view, just like I've drawn here, you'll notice that it has a flat surface as opposed to the curvature that goes all the way around. Now, let's take a look at what happens when we start to light it. So here I got my cell phone again, just lighting the cylinder. And as you notice that you'll find a core shadow across, and on the top plane it's nice and even, just like what we've learned on the cube. So we're going to use a combination of the swatches and gradients as we learn to render a cylinder. Go ahead and start off by drawing a cylinder, but also drawing a full circle next to it, which represents the side view. Here, what I'm going to do is start drawing the light rays or the light direction. And to make it easy for myself, I'm going to make the light be directly above the cylinder, as if it was 12 o'clock noon. From this top section at the peak of the cylinder, it's going to be very perpendicular. And from there, that's where we're going to get our highlight. So this is going to be the brightest point because it's receiving the most direct amount of light, being that it's 90 degrees. And on the right side here, what you'll notice is that the light ray is just tangenting on this surface, which means that's where we're going to get the core shadow. And then from there, we could plot out the cast shadow on the ground based off of the light rays. And just as we've learned in the previous demos, when the light also hits the ground, it'll bounce back up, which gives us the reflected light. So the reflected light will be shown on the bottom surface, just underneath where the cylinder starts to tuck in. The other areas of the cylinder that's still receiving some light will be the halftone or midtone section. Lastly, our sixth and final term is the occlusion shadow at the very bottom of the cylinder. Okay, so once we have that down, we know the sections, we can start lighting the cylinder accordingly. Here we have a 3/4 view, which I'm starting to plot out where the core shadow is and the cast shadow in relation to each other. So that's why it was important for me to start to label them first. That way it'll be easier to construct them as I move along. What I'm drawing down here is a little bit of the light ray and the cast shadow that it's creating. So I'm trying to keep my lighting very simple, just straight up and down. Nothing with a 3/4 light, which makes it a lot longer. And I'm making sure to draw through just as if I'm drawing a box form. From here, I can start blocking in my cast shadow and core shadow accordingly, trying to keep a nice flat even tone. And just giving myself a reminder that the light's coming directly from the top. And from there, I'm going to move on to the side part of the cylinder, which is that flat circle. And the main thing I want to do is make sure that the value here reads a lot more flat and even, as opposed to the curvature where it's going to have that gradient. So please just be sure to take your time as you see that I'm doing here. And it's okay to use an eraser to fix some of the edges. Since we're using pencil, it's okay to really clean things up. I just want to make sure you guys are learning all these principles because we can get loose with it eventually later on. So I know all of this is fairly kind of mechanical and somewhat of a calculated rendering, but we need to learn it in order to be able to paint different sections, render different surfaces. But this is where we need to start. From here, you'll see me move around different parts of the surfaces on this cylinder. So here I'm building up the mid-tone or halftone area. One thing to keep in mind about the halftone is that it needs to be brighter than the reflected light. So one common mistake I see a lot of people do is make the reflected light look a lot brighter than the mid-tone, and that'll throw off the illusion of either the material or just the overall form. So here you'll see me punching up the core shadow a little bit darker just to make it read and just kind of pop out a little more. From there on the side view, I've noticed that it's looking a little bit too bright. Since it's not receiving any sort of really strong direct light, it needs to be a little bit darker than the mid-tone. And then from there, I'm trying to leave the white paper for the highlight section. I'm putting in the occlusion shadow, as you see here. And then from there, just be sure to take your time and keep working on different parts of the cylinder. Just keeping in mind the different sections, which part is curved, and what sections are flat. So before you know it, you'll have a finished rendered cylinder.